Yet another demonstration to protest the country's worsening power situation. Some residents of Achimota in the Greater Accra region today demonstrated across the country saying enough is enough. Carrying fridges flanked by children and joined by some women, some young men clad in red bands say they have not had power for about 1 week. As power crisis has worsened with a loss of 590 megawatts on the national grid, making renewed power crisis particularly painful. The Ashanti region, where only 50 megawatts of power is available for distribution, is the hardest hit. In all of this, service provider ECG and other agencies, Gridco and VRA, seem not to be interested in opening up to the public as they continue to put the people in the dark, while the people continue to bear the brunt of losing their fridges, televisions, and other electrical gadgets, among others, to this unplanned erratic supply of power. So what options are left for the consumer in this dire situation? Can the consumer actually sue the service providers and ask for compensation for the damages caused? Or is it a situation of no hope? My name is Achimota, and this is today's big story. Although Ghana has been experiencing the crisis for the past 3 years, it appears the tolerance level has been breached as the crisis sinks to a new low. Now, the Achimota demonstrators, including barbers and teachers and students, say Achimota appears to have been the worst hit in the Greater Accra region and want an immediate end to the trend.
We are having too much light off in Achimota. For almost a week now, we don't have light over there. It came this morning. For let's say about 30 minutes, it went off again. So we came here to let them explain to us why is it so.
And how bad is the situation?
Oh, very bad enough. Light. You know, we have barbers, hairdressers, so many. They all use light in that area. So they are suffering. They can't even work. You know, everyone must work and then eat. So it's always our concern. We have to come here to explain it to us to understand. Yes, that's why we came here today.
You are one of the leaders of the group. You met with officials of the ECG. What did they say? What exactly did you present to them, and what was their response?
They told us what the problem at the down. They said they have a major problem that's a major problem in Ghana now. But in our area, they said they are going to move it from our area to another line so that they give them the maximum space to do to repair our distance for us, so that we get enough light to work with.
Are you satisfied with it?
Oh yeah, we are satisfied. We are about 75% satisfied. We are not. We heard it was 24/12. If it's like that, we will talk. But if we came back to 24/12, we will understand it. We will be satisfied.
And I've been speaking to some of your people, and the impression I get is that there will be more demonstrations should this situation continue.
That's what we told them. We have to let them know that if they did not solve the problem for us, we are coming with demonstration more than this.
It's very bad. It's because we have barbers, seamstress, welders, and what have you. And even our homes, you wake up in the morning, you want to iron your shirts and then go out and find something to do, and there's no lights. Weekend, you want to go to the barbering shop, get shaved, and there was no light. You've given your clothes to the seamstress to sew it for you, and you go there and say, I don't have lights. I mean, it's affecting our home appliances, our televisions, and a lot of things. So what we are saying to the ECG is that they should try as much as possible. We know it's a general problem, but they should at least. Sometimes the communication gap too is very bad. We have told them, and we have made it emphatic that if they don't solve the problem by today, we are going to come back, and the number is going to be multitude.
Now let's get on to the phone lines and give the mood of some experts. I have Benjamin Boache. He's from ASEP. Good evening. Many thanks for your time. And I also have lawyer Kwame Jantwa on the other phone line. Let me start with you, Benjamin Boache. I thought we were on our way to recovery, especially when the Prime Minister has assured it will be a thing of the past by the end of the year. Should we be facing this in the middle of our journey to recovery?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished listeners. I think at some point all of us had a hope that things would get better when we saw TICO resuming a full operation and also getting the 110 megawatts on stream, only to be told a few weeks later that we don't have gas coming from the FPSO, and therefore some of the generation units had to be shut down. And I think that is what has actually exacerbated the situation. But I can understand the frustration that consumers are going through. And that is why we have been calling that government will really need to act in a way that brings hope and get people running their businesses. Other than that, we're going to wait until everything crumbles, then we have power and we don't have any use for it. And I think that is where we are heading.
So there is a generation gap of almost 600 megawatts nationwide now. Could we blame all of these on the FPSO?
Absolutely not. But I mean, we had some generation coming on which actually stabilized the power challenge with the 24 power on, 12 power on, and the 12 hours power off, which was 50-50 kind of. But now it's worsened. Some places are going down for 3 days. Some in the usual 24 hours off and 12 hours on. I mean, this is not good for anybody. Even those in the domestic setting, you buy your food stuff, you can't even store them, and you can feel for career women who have to cook, for a whole week, and now they can't do that. So if you do that, and you wouldn't come back to meet the food in a decent condition. And I think this is a big thing that we need to have a solution. We had proposed early in the year that we needed to bring on emergency power. And I mean, we were dilly-dallying and we're not seeing any action to get power onto the grid as quickly as possible. And that's why we are where we are. These are machines that are running. Once you do not have what we call reserve margins, you cannot rely on the existing plant to run 24 hours all the time. One will break down at some point. And when they do break down, what do you have, to bring on stream to provide power for the people? And that is why it's important that we commit some funds to bring in emergency power to actually support consumers in this distress.
Besides the emergency power, I know you don't work with the VRA, I know you don't work with ECG or GridCo, but what could have led us to this situation? I'll take your submission on that. Let me speak with lawyer Kwame Jantwa on the other phone lines. If you can hear me, many thanks for your time on today's big story. Now, consumers seem to be taken for granted. In all of these, ECG is not open about how things should go. A load shedding has been drawn and they're not even following the load shedding. It's like being denied of your basic amenities and you're not even being told why you've been denied. So what options are left for consumers in these difficult times? Can we sue, and who should we sue?
Well, good evening to fellow Ghanaians. Good evening to Ben. I would say everybody in this country has the option to go to court if they want to go to court. Everybody has the option to do that. If ECG, if government have come up, they've given a schedule, they've indicated what that schedule is, and still an individual is not happy, a group of people are not happy, the court is there for them to go to. But I think the challenge we have with this ECG problem is the fact that communication is not flowing. People do not know the reason why certain things are happening. And in all that, you find that people's appliances and people's electronic stuff are getting spoiled. I know for a fact that PURC try as much as possible to recompensate people who have gone through some of these challenges in terms of their equipment being damaged because of the erratic power supply. But is that what we're looking for? And as you heard, Benjamin actually indicated the fact that we don't have a reserve margin is a huge challenge. Huge challenge. And for me, I think we should get to a point where the generation companies and the generation of electricity should be able to take care of itself. How do we do that? We do that by making sure that we have the capacity, that we bring in different forms of generation power. And we need to start now. We don't need to wait. We don't need to make it a political issue. We need to start now and gradually, within a certain duration of time, and I give myself 10 years, we would be able to have enough electricity to power this country and to export. For me, the export situation of electricity is very critical to the standing of our electricity situation in this country. Because if we export electricity, we make quite a lot of money out of that. And that money should plow back into further electricity generation. Because ideally, if we have abundance of electricity, it's key. When you go to Trinidad and Tobago, for instance, they have abundance of electricity because of what? Because they're using a source of gas that is powering the electricity. So we need to really look at some of the generation mechanics or materials that can give us quite a lot of electricity to be able to get out of this situation.
Well, let me get onto the other phone line again and speak with Benjamin Boache. We've always been told that there's a shortage of gas supply, water low in the Konsombo Dam, and now FPSO. That is the reasons we've had all these years. Can't we do anything about it?
Yeah, I think that is key. I think the energy minister, the power minister currently said some time back that it's not something that Ghanaians should face. Because, I mean, for water levels, we have known that this is a cyclical problem. It's on and off. It's not going to stop with this cycle. So we have to plan with that in mind. We have always known that gas supply from Nigeria has been erratic. We should also know, I mean, we have industry players working with DRA, ECG. They should know that once you have supply from FPSO and their machines, you're not going to have that consistently running through the pipes. You know, at one point, there will be a shutdown. At one point, there will be a fault. So how do you plan to factor all these in? Fortunately for us, we have most of our plants being dual fuel plants, you know, so the least you can do is to have a stock of light crude oil such that when you don't have gas flow, you can quickly diversify it and use light crude oil. We didn't do that. We sat down for a compressor to break down on the FPSO before we thinking about importing light crude oil to power the generation plant. So largely it has to do with planning and foresight, which we have lacked over the years, you know, and that is what has brought us where we are today.
But there is the argument, earlier on you talked about the emergency barges, but the argument has been that this is not an emergency now. Before it was an emergency, but now it is not an emergency because we've been in it for quite some time. And so it's about time we find solutions rather than go in for emergency barges. You still stand by emergency barges?
I mean, this is a critical situation. Businesses are collapsing unless maybe we don't take them serious. I mean, people are complaining about sacking people every day, and that is an emergency. It's a critical situation. And if we don't have enough generation on our own, then necessarily we need to get emergency power into the country. We have had challenges with the kind of arrangement that we are making, calling them emergency. you cannot buy emergency power for 5 years because that is so expensive a thing to do. What you do is that you make a short-term arrangement, say a year or two, to bring in the generation. There are companies around the world that can actually bring in this generation plant and sell the power to you over that short period and then send them away. You know, that is what you do whilst you focus on fixing your broken down equipment and installing new generation systems. And that we are not doing. We are even signing emergency power for long term, 10 years, sometimes some 5 years, and they don't seem to deliver on those arrangements. And that is where the problem really is. If you commit to buy emergency power from companies who have the capacity to deliver, I'm sure we will get power into the country. But we seem to focus on particular companies that we think they are the ones who are supposed to supply us emergency solution, and it's never coming.
I'll have you hold and speak with Lawyer Jantwa. Lawyer Jantwa, isn't it time for us to now be thinking of generational mix? I'm talking about solar and other avenues we can support our electricity generation.
I think the key thing to it is maintenance. What kind of maintenance culture are we putting in place? Because you can have all, the generation plants working and all. If you don't have a maintenance culture, you don't have anything. Because the moment one breaks down, two breaks down, we are back into the situation we are in. So that maintenance culture is critical in some of the things we do. And we are not in an emergency situation. We are in a crisis situation. A crisis situation where people are being laid off from work. The actual well-being of Ghanaians is being affected. So we really need to look at the different forms of generation we can get to put in. And it starts from now. It might not end, the current government might not be able to finish the introduction of some of these new generation powers we put in, generation plants we put in, but the ones that are emergency that would help Ghanaians to have a comfortable life, at least for this duration, is very important. And I hope that, in putting these things together, we look at the reserve margin, we look at the maintenance, and we look at situations where we can have money put aside to buy this light crude oil. I come back to my point about Tor. We are producing oil. Yes, we are producing oil from the Jubilee field. But I hope when all the others, ENI, Vitol, the K3 points, when all those come on stream,
right,
we would be able to look at the opportunity cost of getting Tor to at least process some of this oil for us, so that at least, even if that is for reserve, when we have situations like that, that can quickly go to our generation plants instead of waiting for BDCs or government or BOS to bring in oil. Because it's a critical situation, it's a crisis situation we are in today.
Some time ago, we're made to believe that as soon as Otuabo and Sonon Asogli comes on board, there will be a lot of relief. And it looks like it's even getting worse. Is it that they're not telling us the truth, or they're just being political about the whole issue?
My dear, how will I know? I'm an ordinary person like you. I'm lack of information like you, a lack of information. I can just conjecture, and I can just use my mind with what is going on within the scope of electricity generation to make my analysis. But I hope the president put the Minister of Power in place specifically to deal with this power situation. If we were to do a due diligence or an analysis on the work of the power minister today, would we say he's delivered? Well, he's given us till the end of December. If by the time end of December comes, we are in a much critical position, or we haven't even been able to lift ourselves from where we are, would we say he would have delivered? In my book, I don't think he would have delivered.
From the way things are going, all right. So I was about to ask you if you think by the end of the year we'll be able to get out of this situation, looking at trends now.
Well, I can't tell. I cannot tell. But from the way things are going, I hope that we will not be in this situation. But from my own perspective, the possibility is that we might probably lift us up a bit or be where we are, because we really haven't put that maintenance culture in place. So if tomorrow something breaks up in Asogli, we are back to square one. Just now it's the FPSO. It could be something else. The other thing that we also didn't think of, which I would have thought we would have done quite quickly, was reverse flow in the West African gas pipeline. So if it so happens that we cannot get gas flowing to the West African gas pipeline, we can have a situation where we can get from a trouble. The other thing I also need to find out, which I haven't found out, is what kind of reserve does the Tuabo plant have? Maybe Ben will be able to tell me. What kind of reserve does the Tuabo have, whereby if we have a situation where the FPSO can't work, reserve to take gas into the VRA? That I do not know. But if that was there, probably it would help save some of the challenges we are going through at this particular moment in time.
Well, many thanks to you, Lawyer Jantua. We're extremely grateful for your time on today's big story. Back to you, Benjamin. I guess you would want to attempt to answer the question Lawyer Jantua asked before he left on the line. He's asking what kind of reserve that Tuabo has. You can provide us with some answers.
I think for gas, you produce and consume, and that has been the challenge. You know, once you produce, you have to consume it, and it is difficult to store enough, and therefore they wouldn't have anything stored, you know, to be used when there's a problem on the FPSO. So that is actually the challenge. You can't store enough, you know, to use when you don't have the pipe running. So what we needed to do is actually have a backup with the light crude oil, which we have control over.
Right, which we haven't done.
Which we haven't done, and that is why we are where we are today.
So it appears the heat is now too much for all of us after the job losses, collapse of businesses, and all of that. So immediately, what steps can we take, or can government take, to at least improve the situation as we wait for the Minister of Power to end this crisis by the end of the year?
I think we still maintain that we need some emergency solution, you know, to come and cushion consumers. It may not be enough to actually provide sufficient power, but if you can even go to 12-hour on, 12-hour off, that is enough to plan with for now, whilst we work quickly to bring all our plants back on stream, you know, and also help quicken some of the plants that are actually under construction currently, so that we can have enough relief. Because if you look at the water levels at Akosombo right now, it doesn't look like it's going to bring enough generation even this year. So this is the time for us to actually wake up quickly and see what solutions we can bring on stream. You asked a question earlier whether consumers can actually sue. In fact, the ECG charter mandates them that they cannot take power for 24 hours without informing the people. But we have been living with this since 2012, thereabouts. So if everybody want to go to court now, there will be total anarchy. And that is why it's important that government steps in at this point to provide a solution. And it looks like we are talking more than we are doing. And that is where we are still in this situation.
Well, so are we likely to get power by the end of the year, looking at trends?
Something dramatic will need to change. We will need to bring in a different plan rather than what we have on the drawing board right now, because I don't see that giving us enough power to speak out of doing so.
There are people who argue that the power ministry or the entire energy ministry should be overhauled. Looking at the way things are going, and if by the end of the year we do not have power or the situation is not resolved, will it be justified for the Ministry of Power to be overhauled?
We said early in the year that we are not interested in people resigning and people promising to give up their role. What is important is that people have power to run industry. At the end of the year, if the minister resigns and people have lost their job, of what benefit would that be to us? You know, so it's a responsibility that government will have to take. Because ultimately, we elected a president, not a minister. So that is where our focus should be, to push for solutions from the president at this point.
Well, many thanks to you, Benjamin Boache from ASEP. We're really grateful for your time on today's big story. Not only Accra is in this problem, Ghana's second city, Kumasi, is also faced with a similar or even worse crisis because they're now living on a 50 megawatts, and 50 megawatts means special institutions like Ghana Water Company, security agencies and all of that would have to be served, and then if some is left, they can think of the approximately 4.8 million people in the Ashanti region. Let's listen to the Ashanti regional PR of the ECG.
A system collapse, when it happens, it means there's something wrong in the system. And the system involves the generation, the transmission, and the distribution. It is not only in the distribution. If something is wrong, then the system will just give up. With time, if it is corrected, it will start picking the power for customers again. So basically, that is all that we need. Well, it's not in our control to say that it will not happen again. Normally, it is in the control of Gridco because they have an oversight responsibility of the entire network. So if there's any problem that would trigger a system collapse, there's Gridco that can actually manage it. Those that would take the 50 megawatts, that's the 25%, are basically what we term as the special loads or the sensitive customers. And these basically are the Ghana Water and Sewage, so that they can pump about 24 to 30 million gallons of water for the citizens in Kumasi and its environment. And then also we'll give to Kompanochi Hospital so that patients and all those who need health care at that place can also apply power to do it.
So we've been talking about the erratic power supply, which is getting worse in the country. We also told about a problem with the Abuaze thermal plant in the western region, which is also affecting people. So it looks like it's a whole, it's across the country. It's not just one region. But this is the basic amenity, should be enjoyed by everyone. And so what is going to be done by government? Are we going to achieve our aim of ending the crisis by the end of 2015? Well, it's been today's big story. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. We'll be back with Joy News Interactive.